This is video 4 for Alan Coyle. So I want to talk briefly now about the penetrating damp that is visible around the window. So you can see here, I'll show you on the plan here. I have marked the areas where moisture is visible around the windows on the plan here, particularly around this window. This is the worst window here, and this side here was the worst side, and that's actually what's shown in the photograph there. Now, there was also penetrating damp around here, and I've labeled it, and there probably was minor penetrating damp around these two windows, but not very visible, so I haven't recorded it. But the worst was here. Now, there's two possible reasons for this penetrating damp. So if I was to, I'll go further down to this, this plan here. That's a plan of a window showing a thick stone wall, which is basically what you have, and you've got dry lines. Your window is, or your wall is dry lined on the inside. Now, at the side of the window frame, there may be a small piece of insulation, as is shown here with green, or there may be no insulation, because it wouldn't be possible to put thick insulation here because the window would probably just look too small. And what can happen then is, because there is a minimal amount of insulation here and a minimal amount of insulation here, you can have thermal bridging, heat loss, quite a lot of heat loss through this particular area, and even more heat loss the closer it gets to the window, because the distance that it has to travel is quite short. The distance traveling here is long, here is quite short, so the moisture is often, so this, if there's a lot of heat lost through this area, what you have is the problem might have resulted from condensation forming on the walls, from hot moist air hitting a cold surface, a relatively uninsulated cold surface, and forming condensation leading to black mold. So that's one possible cause of that, and it's oftentimes it's normal. It's a normal problem that you'll get in, particularly in an old stone building that has no cavity. Now, you generally don't get it as much in a more modern building, and you don't have this problem in, if I go back to the plan here, in your extension, you don't have this problem with dampness visible around the window. Now, the other possible problem that you might have, the other possible cause, the second possible cause for the dampness, and it might be one or other cause, or it might be a combination of both. But sometimes, if the window seal, the silicone seal between this window here and between the window frame and the stone wall, if that silicone seal is not in good condition, sometimes you can get driving rain penetrating around the window frame, and sometimes you can get a significant amount of rain penetrating around the frame, keeping this area more moist than you normally would. So this is the window here, and you can see here a silicone seal between the cement render and the window frame. Now, if I move in here, zoom in, you can see here, just as I put pressure on it, this seal here, this silicone seal, is actually has not adhered to the window. So it may have stuck at some point, but it's not adhered now. So there is actually a gap there where driving rain can penetrate, and you might be surprised at how much driving rain can penetrate and get in there. So this seal needs to be redone. And basically the reason it hasn't adhered to the window frame is because the surfaces weren't prepared properly. The surfaces need to be cleaned and prepared properly for the silicone to adhere correctly to the window frame, and it was probably not done very well. So I would fix this first. This problem is an easy problem to, well, it's relatively simple to fix this problem, to revise the silicone seals around these windows and to make sure that they're done correctly, that the surfaces are prepared properly. Because if the surfaces are not prepared properly, I mean, that's the key. Clean and prepare the surface properly. If that's not done, it won't last. And you might have the same problem again next year. Whereas if it's cleaned properly, it should last for decades, or at least a decade. Now, The second problem that I noted, which was effectively the lack of insulation or the reduced insulation here, which can cause cold bridging. That's a more difficult problem to fix and potentially a slightly more expensive problem to fix. There are some solutions, so I'm going to suggest to you to look up a type of insulation which is a very compact form of insulation. It's called a vacuum insulated panel, or a VIP, a vacuum insulated panel. So some people will put in vacuum insulated panels around window frames. It's not that commonplace to do so yet, but it's a product that's becoming more popular on the market and may help remediate that problem in the long term. Okay, now this was one of the stains that you asked me to have a look at here. This is over the range. There was a stain in the ceiling. Now when I checked that with my moisture meter, it's reading as currently dry, so I wouldn't worry about it. It may have been a slight plumbing leak that's been repaired. I had a look at the roof up there. It all looks very dry and in good condition, so I wouldn't say that there's anything to worry about. I would just fill that crack and paint over it. And again, on the other side of that chimney stack here, we're again over the range. That's the leak I just talked about. There's also some damage here to the plaster locally, and it looks like possible moisture damage, but I couldn't confirm exactly what it is. It's not currently damp. The moisture meter reads it as currently dry. There's no evidence, when I go up to the attic space, there's no evidence of any dampness up here or any problems with ongoing moisture ingress. So again, I would just do a local repair just to fix the plaster there and paint it, and I wouldn't worry about it. This is the same area. That's just that's basically the same area directly over in the attic space. You can see the chimney stack here. There's the blockwork chimney stack here, the blockwork chimney stack, and there's basically that is an old stone wall there, and the top part of it was repaired with blockwork. So you can see the old stonework there, and then repair was done with blockwork. But it all looks very dry. There's no moisture coming in. There's no moisture coming in around the chimney, so I wouldn't. You don't really have anything to worry about. The attic looks in very good condition and it's well insulated. The other problem I noticed, particularly with the stone dwelling, or the original stone dwelling, the paintwork. Some of the areas of paintwork are peeling, and it just appears to be a poor paintworking job. I mean, when I put the moisture meter on it, the next page is a closer view of the same area. The moisture meter indicates that it's currently dry, so it's not a case that there's moisture penetrating, and it just seems to be a case that it was poorly painted. You know, the first coat of paint that went on may have been too thick, and it's just did not adhere very well, and now it's bubbling and peeling off. It may be happening due to minor amounts of condensation on the wall, but as I say, it's reading currently dry at the minute, so it's not a major source of dampness. It may be an indication of condensation, and all I would do is just clean off the loose paint and paint it again. Now, you had asked about this area here. There's no obvious reason for all of this damage to the paintwork and the fungal growth. You know, normally when you get this kind of fungal growth here and mold growth, it's normally an indication of an increased moisture in this whole area. Now, Anne, the vendor, did say that this gutter was blocked. Historically, it had been blocked, and she hadn't been there for months, so it had been overflowing and saturating the wall for months. But it's been since repaired, and I think that's the right answer. I think she's telling me what happened, because I can see no other reason for the damage. It does look like the kind of damage that you would get, or that would be associated from a blocked gutter that was overflowing for months. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, you know, it's just at this stage, problem has been resolved and it's just cosmetic damage. So if we zoom in on the next page here, we can see the damage. So what I would be doing here is I would power wash it just to remove all of the loose paint, and use a scraper if necessary to remove the loose paint. After that, I would be treating it with a biocide, which is basically just a chemical that you roll on, which will kill any fungal or mold growth. And it's important to do that before you put on a new paint coat, because if you just try and clean it down by power washing it or scraping it, you won't actually remove all of the invisible fungal growth that will prevent the new paint coat from adhering. So it's important to treat it, and that's true anytime you paint. You're supposed to roll on or spray on a biocide first before repainting externally, no matter when or what you're painting. Now there is a crack here in the actually, I think I will stop this video here and I'll continue on the next one. Okay.